All right, let's dive in. We're going to go deep inside the smart devices that are, all over our homes. We're here to uncover that hidden world of cybersecurity, the stuff that makes a simple smart toy actually safe for your family. And we'll do it by looking at how the pros build one right from the ground up. So here's a question I bet has crossed your mind. Is your smart toy listening? Yeah, we buy all these cool connected gadgets, but there's always that nagging feeling, right? That little bit of worry. Are they actually secure? Who are they talking to? Well, we're going to find out by digging into the actual blueprint for how a secure smart toy is really built. To do this, we're going to use a case study from a real manufacturer's security guide. Now, it's a fictional toy doll with sound, but it's totally realistic. It's got a microphone, a speaker, and it connects to a parent's smartphone using Bluetooth. It's pretty much the perfect example for us to understand the real-world security challenges and, more importantly, their solutions. So what are this toy's secrets? How does a manufacturer make sure it's actually protecting your family's privacy? Well, it all starts with how the toy's designed from day one.
And this, right here, is the crucial point. Real security, good security. It isn't some feature you just add at the end of the process. No, it has to be baked into the product's DNA, right from the initial idea all the way to the factory floor. The pros call this secure by design.
So what does that process even look like? Well, we're going to peek inside a real-world security guide, which is basically the manufacturer's playbook. It's their step-by-step plan for building a digital fortress around this little toy.
And I love this because this is a refreshingly honest admission straight from the guide itself. Just checking a box for some safety standard? Nope, that's not enough. True security is an ongoing responsibility. It takes constant vigilance and a really deep understanding of the product.
The whole playbook pretty much boils down to this three-step dance. First, you analyze all the ways things could possibly go wrong. Then, you build very specific protections for those risks. And finally, and this is key, you document every single decision so it can be tested and verified and proven. Okay, it's teardown time. To make the toy secure, we first have to understand its parts. We're going to break it down into two key concepts, interfaces and assets. And don't worry, it's way simpler than it sounds. Just think of interfaces as the toy's doors and windows. Simple as that. They're any point where information can go in or out. Could be a wireless signal, a button, or even some hidden port for the developers. Every single one is a potential entry point that needs a really good lock.
Now, what's fascinating here is just how many doors a simple little doll can have. I mean, you've got the obvious ones, like the Bluetooth connection and the microphone, but then there are the hidden ones. A configuration button tucked away in the battery compartment, and these internal debug ports, things like JTAG and UART, which are special connections engineers use during development.
So, if interfaces are the doors and windows, then assets, well, assets are the secret treasures inside the vault. These are the valuable things an attacker might want, and protecting them is literally the entire point of this whole security exercise. And these treasures are deeply personal. We're talking about sound recordings of your child, the toy's core software, its brain, and maybe most importantly, the secret digital keys that lock and unlock everything else. These things absolutely must be protected, no question. Okay, so we know the weak points, the interfaces, and we know what's valuable, the assets. So how do engineers actually guard these treasures? Well, it all comes down to a really clear defense strategy. And the strategy is super methodical. First, control who can get to what. Second, make absolutely sure users are who they say they are. Third, you got to ensure software updates are safe and not malicious. And fourth, protect any data that's just sitting there stored on the device itself. And this is just a brilliant illustration of that strategy in action. Remember those factory debug ports? Well, they're physically hidden and permanently disabled before the toy ships. That door is slammed shut. The config button, tucked away where a child can't just press it. And all the important data, from the recordings to the toy's brain, is encrypted and digitally signed to prove it hasn't been tampered with. Now here's a key defense, creating different user levels. So the child gets a simple play mode, no access to sensitive settings or data. But the parent gets an authenticated admin mode with full control to configure the toy, download recordings, and install updates. It's smart. But that brings up a really fascinating question, right? To pair securely, your phone and the toy need to confirm a secret code. But how does a toy with no screen show you a code?
The solution is just so clever. The toy uses its speaker to literally say a 6-digit code out loud. The parent then types that code into the app, which proves they are physically with the toy. That simple action confirms the connection is legit and helps block any remote attacks. Pretty cool.
And the guide is very clear on this point. It strongly recommends using the latest security standards for Bluetooth pairing. This isn't just, a suggestion. It is a critical, absolutely essential component for creating a truly secure link between the toy and the phone.
So that's the manufacturer's playbook. A lot of engineering, a lot of thought. But what does all of this mean for you, the person actually buying the toy? Let's bring it all home.
Get this. Throughout this one security guide, for this one toy, the phrase strongly recommended appears 16 times. 16. That number, it tells a story, doesn't it? It shows you the sheer depth of consideration that goes into a well-designed product. It's a huge checklist of best practices, from disabling ports all the way to encrypting data.
So what can you do with all this info? Well, first, remember that security is a process, not some feature sticker on a box. Look for companies that provide regular, secure updates. That's huge. Second, understand what the device can actually sense. Does it have a microphone, a camera? And finally, check for those smart features, like separate parent and child modes. That's a great sign of thoughtful, secure design.
So we'll leave you with this question. Now that you've seen the security playbook in action, now that you've seen what goes on behind the scenes, what will you look for in your next smart device? Thanks for tuning in.